I feel like I'm in that. Here, let's look at that again. I'm just one divine. Just one. Welcome to episode number 4 with Valerie Elster on her birthday. And I'm just going to be candid and honest with you. I just woke up a few minutes ago. I did. It's been so screwy with these energies, and I have not been able to sleep much at night at all. And I finally slept, and I got up earlier, and then I fell back asleep. So I'm just doing it, and I'm gonna bring on what is always a good conversation, Valerie Elster, adding to stage.
Hi, everybody.
All right, nobody's on yet. Give a second here. I'm going to switch over so that we can see the chat. And I'm going to try to take one moment. Nice thing about a podcast is that I can edit out little segments when I put the audio
really
up on all the podcast land.
We slowed down.
Yeah. We control time, people.
We're in that vortex.
So there's a oh, you are live. It says I'm live on Instagram. I don't think I am. Okay, if I am, hi. I have not quite, they added this Instagram live to the StreamYard, and I have not quite. You have to do a separate thing and a separate.
Yeah.
Anyway, I won't get into technicalities because it's not really interesting.
You're fast and I'm slow. At least on
somewhere
my
in between. We're meeting. So, welcome, Valerie. It is your birthday on 5/16.
Yes. Important day.
It is an important day. And I can't remember the specifics of the mathematical importance of 5/16 that when I worked with Robert Edward Grant, who it is his birthday. We'll give a shout out. Happy birthday, Robert.
Happy birthday, Robert.
And he would go into all the nuances and importances of your birthday. And I know it's an important mathematical date, but I couldn't tell you why. As I said to him, I don't do the math. I do the magic.
It's 5/16, right? 5, 6, 11, 12. It's a 12.
And there's a whole other thing to it. You would chose to be born 12. There.
So I'm 12/12 today. I'm 57.
Bring it, girl.
And I'm in New Mexico, where one divine and I and others did a 12/12 ceremony.
Oh, that's right.
So I was told, go to New Mexico for your birthday. I was here last year for my birthday, so there's something about New Mexico and my yeah. I was on Kimber's land. I'm in Kimber's house. Thank you, Kimber. Yeah, staring at it's rainy. We had a ton of wind, and now it's raining. So there's definitely a new, there's a whole new timeline, which many of us have been talking about. But I felt and I heard last night that the Akashic Records would be resetting. This is something I've worked on for 12 years. So it's a very important day for me.
You just solved the riddle for me.
Yes, I thought so. I needed to lead with that because that was coming in and it kind of shifted at midnight. And I said, of course, it's going to be on my birthday because I was here a year ago, which, linear time has nothing to do with it. However, the numerology of our timelines of our individual blueprints, right? Like when I was born and the year and what have you, does make a difference only in that it allows us to synchronize some of the 3D pieces to the nonlinear or galactic, right? Time out of time. So.
Yes, that there's a few things I'm going to unpack there that are really good. I wanted to first um, go into that, but I just wanted to take 1 second because I didn't, just to drop in together.
Okay. Yeah, I'm jumping out of the gun.
Yeah, it's good. There's so much going on and there's so much I want to talk to you about. This, if I was going to like oversleep and not be ready for any podcast or appearance, this would be the one because
Yeah,
Valerie and I could sit and talk for an hour about what's going on and bleep
yeah.
blorb. We always call it bleep
This
blorb
is our normal
all day
conversation.
long. This is what we do. And this is why I wanted to feature her and also feature us because there are a lot of people who we call it weaving. And I weave with many people, and Valerie weaves with many people. And there may be a time where I'm weaving heavily with a certain person, or she is in a certain place, and we're working on a certain thing. And then we will come together and weave some more. And it may be months where we're not really weaving, and then we'll come back and there's no expectation and it just happens, and this is what is happening and this is what we're doing, and we have pieces for each other. Everybody talks about that, pieces of the puzzle. We absolutely do, and I want to talk a little bit about that today too because I'm seeing more of it, right? But I just wanted to be before we like roll right into it. And there's just a couple of things of what she just said that I already want to unpack and that I think are important regarding um, signs and how you get them and pieces of it, and then just that in and of itself. So just want to
Yeah.
take
Can I
one
just say one
moment
thing? Because I'm
here.
wearing all white and you're wearing black, and I was guided to wear, and I got a white thingy on, but I have a white dress on. So just want to
Okay,
mention
this
that.
is something else we do.
Yes.
We've done this
We
for
have a
years.
twin thing. We're definitely twins, but we're very high level, like galactic twins, because yeah, this is part of our alchemy together.
Yes.
Okay.
And she also, with that, it's so we do it energetically. So, like, I'm going out big, going somewhere, doing some huge mission, groundwork, ceremony, something, and she'll be on the couch, can't move. And I've experienced it the other way where I
Yeah.
can't move and she's out flying. So we do share bandwidth like this. It is really like I always talk about, my teachings are the tech of tuning in. It
Yeah.
is technology. And this is something that Valerie and I work on. Okay. I'm just going to just a quick, because we're rolling. It's happening. And I so want to talk about that too. So I'm just energetically pulling myself in, pulling my own energy in. And I welcome you to join me in that exercise. I'm pulling in my I am presence and my energy that is running all over the room, setting up microphones or anything I was doing before this, that we collect it and be here now. Call in all of my light team, our guides, assistance, protection. And we thank our ancestors, Galactic fam, Earth fam, doesn't matter. It's all family and it's all one. But we call that in now for a blessed conversation on this blessed birthday day of this dear friend and cohort, Valerie Elster, on our One Divine podcast. So thank you for just taking a moment with me to just consciously drop in consciously on what we're doing. And if we do that, I think overall, we're just present where we are. I know for me, it saves a lot of headache. So, back to, I wanted to talk about what you were saying with the Akashic Library and how that solved a riddle. It was getting ridiculous, with the signs, symbols, and synchro of libraries. And I always know that is always Akashic for me when I start seeing libraries all around. And sometimes it gets comical if I'm not like sort of solving the riddle. Okay, what's that about? And when I see certain signs or get messages, they'll come until I solve the riddle. And then as soon as I solve the riddle, I don't see it anymore. And then I'm on to a next riddle. And sometimes I'm solving 5, 10 riddles at a time. Where,
Right.
just like life, you're working on different stuff. But I wanted to talk about what ways does that affect people, in this time? How will you see that, Valerie, playing out with the Akashic Library? I was even saying Mahara posted too after I had said about we're writing a new Bible, because that's what came
Yes.
in. And she kind of got the same thing, like we're writing new books.
Yes, we're writing new stories. I mean, I've said that for a long time. Thank you for having me. Number one. Um, I do have some language, but I do want to speak in English before that, just to answer your question, because what's happening is all of the old information that was stored in the Akashic records, it's almost like, it's now out of the cache, so to speak. And One Divine and I, being from the tech world, and a lot of you understand what that means. It's not an accessible database anymore. It's a very important point in our evolution as a species, because most of us have been, running the cycles, right, that are sourced from the not only our individual record, but the collective record of humanity, which is very important because we don't need to go back and pull in those toxic trauma memories. And this is a really important piece. Yes, you can still access those if you really want to. And I was speaking to Casey Clausen this morning about it. And it's part of this vision that I've seen of the big groups of us allowing big groups to come through and process grief, because the body is still running, even though it's no longer accessible in the Akashic library. The body somatically still has a memory. So that's what's happening. And um, it's a huge step for our collective um, ascension, what have you. And I'll just want to note it's very much related to Atlantis. I talked about unhooking that 2,000-year-old timeline that many of us were operating on. It's very much related to that. So it's finally to the point where it's not needed anymore, because it doesn't technically exist. It's just that the memory of it, right? The energetic, um, as you say, the soft shapes on the Polaroid. It started to fade when we unhooked that Atlantis timeline.
Again, there's a lot in there.
Hmm. I know.
I wanted to address the group alchemy,
Yes.
because we've talked about this for a while. And just for the sake of the podcast and sort of the theme I've been representing and want to talk about is our receiving modalities. And I'm talking with people about how they receive, who they receive from, how it started, and that sort of thing. And we'll get into that with you. But the group alchemy, and this is also why I'm doing this, why we're coming together, to bring together pieces of messages that we have that show a larger picture. But one of the things, when I came here to Mount Shasta, I am broadcasting from Mount Shasta. She's in Sante Fe, New Mexico. We were there last time, as she had mentioned. I did ceremony and work at 11:11, a lot of them. 11:11 in Taos. I was there with the grandmothers the month before at an event for Friday the 13th, which was no small day, and the eclipse. And 12/12, we went back and had a group ceremony with a larger group. So it was like, this is exactly what's happened. Like, there might be 7 of us, and then there's 15, and then there's 50, and then there's 100. But when I came to Shasta, I knew that I was getting the directive, but I knew that a big part of it is around the group transmutation, especially like you said,
Yes.
of what's happening and what's going to happen, that we would require us to come together to create a stronger container and signal to burn off what's burning up. And the grief
Yes.
is really coming up, and it is too
Yes.
much for any one group or person or society to bear. And many
Mhm.
of us who do this work are coming together with just the sole intention, it's not even for ours, to give a container for divine in our all of our circuits together on the same board, all of our CPUs riding a file. You know, I always bring it back to, remember in the old days when the internet, in the old days when the internet was just starting and we used to have to use a few different computers to render one 3D
Oh,
file,
crap. We're
and it
dating
would work
ourselves.
all night and it would take 6 hours, and you could do a server farm and plug into everybody so you could render your file all night.
Remember the floppy disks?
Oh, yeah. So, she and I are OGs,
Oh,
with that
David.
stuff,
Hi,
94
Jamie. Hi,
starting the
David.
internet.
Love you guys. Yeah,
But it's the
we
same
do.
thing. It's like putting all those CPUs together to
Mhm.
render a big giant file or process a big giant
Yeah.
calculation.
Yes. That's a great way to put it. And that's Atlantis, also known as Atlantis. Only because if you look at what started in Atlantis, right? Just because Atlantis went down, it doesn't mean that energetic frequency, it doesn't mean it went away. It continued. It just went to Egypt and other places. So it's really, for me, the source code here of what has been running overall as a program. Okay. So I look, and you do too. It's program. What is the program? And what is the loop? Because that's what got unhooked, was a very big loop. I said 26,000 years. Somebody said something
Yes.
else. Right. So if you look at the cycles, it's all about cycles. And I work in timelines, which are just cycles of events and situations, cycles of time, right? um, but they don't have a 3D piece. It's just that this is where we're running things out in the physical reality. But I and many of others work in cycles. It's groups of information, groups of people, which is why you mentioned in the beginning, when it's time for this to, on the ground, everybody shows up from that timeline, from that monad family, from that soul group, because we're all fractals of these soul groups. Some of us have a lot of fractals because we're part of many different soul groups, as you and I and others are. So we get called up for many different projects simultaneously sometimes, because we've been here and we're part of, on a soul level or a monad level, we're part of so many different pieces. I hope that made sense.
Makes total sense. I'm just
I'm
excited
trying to
too.
say a lot of
We've
things.
got our, speaking of monad groups and soul families, we've got them on here. We got
I
Jamie and
know.
David.
Mwah.
Um, and I'm going to show David's comment.
I
We
have
all need a
language.
grief counselor at
We
the moment,
do. I do have
which is his
language.
band, by the way. We'll give a shout out, and shout out for a recent loss. Blessings,
Yes.
with your
Oh,
family just lost the father. So,
right.
but
Yeah.
that's such a perfect comment. I had to, that's for real. And
Yeah. For
also
real.
go to Grief Counselor on Spotify. You're welcome, David. For my millions of fans, maybe I'll get you get to
I
some
have
downloads.
language. Sorry, it's coming in.
Hit it,
Um,
girl.
just to relay what I said in a frequency, right? Because I speak a lot of frequency, um, which started happening actually after 2012, because I started opening up so many databases, and then I started to translate said databases. um, Patando frutshai kata alania manohodai kana dartu shikiamane pataka lama mashtianta e kasamba chukusanje shambe mana rotakiana ne kotakai lama no kotai katia dahotu shamba shikasa shambai kondai katai tama.
That's a perfect segue. Let's talk about light language.
Yeah. I just want to acknowledge
Um,
Jamie for what she just said. She's just been crying and witnessing the tears because it's not
yeah,
just for us, right, personally,
yeah,
because we're part of the collective. We're one species. I just want to remind everyone we're all part of the same species. We just forgot, and there are, things that have devised us in many ways. So, really, part of this Earth mission, so to speak, is about reuniting the tribes, reuniting all of the families. But as many of you have
yes,
worked on, including myself and One Divine, we've had to do so much healing and go into all these different timelines. And there was a lot of healing and a lot of um, renewal, codes of renewal, including the land. So there were so many pieces, moving parts, right, to this last 12 years. That's when I had my greater awakening. It was January 2012. And it was like a 2x4, came. I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing here.
yeah. And then did
Okay.
we link maybe on Facebook like 2013, 20? Because we were both in LA.
Yes.
She was in Redondo, and I know at that time I came together with just like there was this core crew that just started percolating, like Eric Rankin and Awakening Code Radio, and I was on
Right.
that, and
Yep.
13. So it was like that same time.
Yeah,
And
we had those
I
pods.
wanted to draw attention to that too, because Valerie is like many of us, many of you perhaps, who she said, we always had like a big awakening because we were already awake. She was already
Yeah.
doing Reiki and
Ashok and
Akashic work
yeah,
and this sort of
quantum
thing.
stuff.
I
Yeah.
was on the journey too. I was aware of talking to guides and angels and that sort of thing. And it
Yes.
was in fact my guides who were guiding me to do certain things before the 12-12-12 deadline, because they're like, if you don't get rid of that, you're not going to go in the
Right.
trajectory, that sort of thing.
Yep.
But it was right around that time we came together, and that's interesting from the soul country, where you are, who you're with, who you connect with at the times you
Mhm.
do. It's just miraculous to me. It's part of the reason I'm doing this OD podcast, because the stories are fascinating, and you can see, if you're observing, you can literally see the magnetics because it's all magnetic. Right, you can
Yes.
see how we cluster with each other in certain places, and then we come apart. It is so amazing, and one of the things that's amazing, and I wanted to ask you about, is um, Valerie is a language keeper, a light language keeper, and many now, as they are having their big awakenings, we were in a wave so that we could figure out how the plane works a little bit, and then show those who come in later waves how that works.
Yes.
But the light language is really flourishing now. Many people, it's just happening.
Yay.
Children are coming in,
What are my
speaking it,
goals?
no problem. Yeah, they're drawing it. I've been seeing that for a lot of time. A lot of the autistics,
Yep.
um, a lot of the autistic children who were even nonverbal could draw light language. And I remember when I first saw somebody shared it in a group, like my son, he was nonverbal autistic, and these drawings this woman would just keep posting, and they would make me cry. They were so incredible, and I recognized the writing, right? But tell us about how those kind of, I would love to hear, like, how did they come on? How did that present for you, and how did it then begin, because I've had her have different languages with me. I'm like, oh, that sounds like dragon. I'm starting to be able to discern some of the different ones, and I can
Yay.
tell. And then I got yelled at by dragons once, and I was like, I'm
Yeah.
getting yelled at. I think I'm getting yelled at
Yeah.
because you are.
People do recognize when they're being like reprimanded or they're being, it's funny because, and I can feel some of it, but it's really the receiver, right? I'm the conduit. Um, but it is funny, people do recognize that. It really started, I'd say, 2012, because when I had that greater awakening, I was doing, I'd say, more drawing. So I was drawing, I was doing symbols. I was drawing, and I was like, what is this? And there were frequencies. So I started drawing a lot of frequencies. I did draw some language, some symbols. It was all like Egyptian stuff. And there was a lot of numbers. So in the beginning, it was symbols and numbers, and I was putting them together in what I'd say would be codexes, right? A lot of galactic stuff. So in the first 2, 3 years, it was all galactic. I was doing galactic meetings. I started getting pulled in meetings, and I'm like, what's happening? Only because I could discern. Even though I didn't fully understand everything, I started to speak more. So it gradually, from the drawing and the numerical, turned into the speaking. So it was like I was speaking, it was just tones. It was tones, it was grunts, it was whatever. And then the language started to come in. And then I started to understand and be able to discern what language, where it was coming from. Again, because of my access to the records. So I had already been doing that since 2005. Like you said, I was already on the path. I already had an understanding. So I was able to quickly go into the records if something was happening and see what it was about. So I did have that skill early on, which really helped me in 2012, 2013, because I was like, what the hell's happening? Who are all these people? Everybody was coming in, and I knew, because that's what I heard, everybody would start showing up from these different timelines. Like we all got dropped on Earth, right? And then everybody awoke at that moment. And or our higher monad aspects came in. So the monad is the group, right? So everybody dropped in together. And then it was like, find the others. That was one of the messages. I think people have had similar ones.
Oh,
So it was
100%. And that
right.
started when I started going down there
Yeah.
and working with you in person.
Yeah. Find the
And
group.
we
Oh,
started going physical in
yeah.
doing things,
It was like, oh, we're
operations
going to
on the
work
ground
together.
crew.
Yeah. Here's this tech. So it's kind of like they drop you on a planet, and then you have to, quickly assemble things.
Find your pack, find your team.
Yeah. Find your pack, unpack, find your team. What are you doing here? I mean, so the remembrance came through really quickly. That sped up exponentially. And then also started the 7-year cycle. I've talked about this before, of 2012, which I woke up in January 2012 because I needed the entire year to figure out what was happening and also connect with a lot of people to start receiving the keys and the codes. So that was a really important year for that. By December 2012, that was the message of, this is the 7-year cycle, right? December 2012, December 2019. Everybody knows what happened in 2020. So that was one 7-year cycle. And then we started another one. Okay. So there's cycles. And if you do numbers and cycles and symbols, which we all do, then you understand what's happening, because that's how it presents itself. And it's a way to kind of encapsulate what's happening, because most of it's just translation of what's happening. And that's a lot of what I do, because I've been in it for so long, and I would be called a way shower, as you would. And we each have our specialty. And this is my specialty, is understanding tones of creation, which could be just, language. It's not just language. I do all sorts of things. I make noises. I do things on my hands. So it's whatever the expression wants to come in as. I haven't gone back to art. I really want to. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it as a reality.
Me too. I'm craving clay.
Yeah,
Working with
I want
clay.
to do something different expression wise. And I
Yeah.
feel like
I
it's
did
probably time to
photography
do
for
that.
17 years, I
Yeah,
haven't touched my camera. I haven't touched my
exactly.
camera really.
So I hope that made sense. I mean, I talk about it, from time to time. And I did make the intention, and I would say, I wanted to speak language. And so I can't wait till everybody starts speaking because I really just want to speak in my natural tones and my natural tones. And because we're becoming more telepathic, it's not just about the language, right? We're
Yeah.
telepathically communicating. And that is
Big
another
time.
piece. Yeah.
Don't you find it really fast right now?
It's so fast. And that's why, I have been traveling, as some of you know. I've been on the road for 7.5 months today. And I keep asking, okay, when am I going to ground? I'm ready to have a route, but it's not yet. And I'm literally day to day. And that's how quickly things are shifting, moving.
Oh, you're so
I'm
cute. I've been
trusting.
3
I've
years.
been fully provided for. Just like when you step out, I'm like, okay, it'll show up. I am being asked to write books, ebooks
Same,
or audiobooks. I'm supposed to do
same.
one today on my birthday. I'm like, really? So I'm definitely getting it's time to start, compiling everything.
See, this
Um,
is the new library and the
yeah,
new books too. I've
yes.
been showing that. Like, I'm getting the prod too. Like, I started the ebook for the 7-day OS
Right.
and for the
Yep. It's it. It's time.
yeah, and
Oh,
really succinct too, because we're moving into a
yeah.
place. That's why ebooks are doing so well because
Yeah,
we can
that's
just
what I'm
get quick
told.
things. We
Ebook.
might just be,
Yeah.
50 pages on how to do something, and we know it's modular. We just swim through.
Yes.
I was shown micro content, right?
Yeah.
Um, immediate, what was it? The words that came from guides.
Yeah.
Immediate media, where
Hmm.
we can now swim like fish. Like they showed me the whales, right? They eat plankton. That's nothing. They're little teeny tiny. They're not having a big giant dinner, and they're
Yeah.
constantly just consuming, and it's enough to make a whale,
Yeah.
and so we swim through and we get the little pieces that we need, and then we assemble it on board
Yes.
into an entire picture meal or whatever. But if you're waiting, if you're out there, if you got something to share, just
Right.
do it. I'm
Yeah.
being really
Exactly.
pushed,
Yes.
aren't you,
Me too.
Valerie? Like
Yes.
create
Yes.
and just create.
Yeah. I
That
already started
creates
writing it. I already started writing it
a
a few.
hologram.
Yeah, I already started writing it in 2023, over a year ago. Book one, Prelude. So I've I've set up templates for what's
Same.
coming through,
Yeah.
right? And chapter one, the awakening, and I'm talking about what happened when I had that awakening. I'm sitting on my back porch with my son, who was 20 months, and it was like do 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 do. Everything started going off, and Gaia introduced herself to me, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I call, Alex, my cohort. Gaia, it just introduced herself to me. And he's like, oh, great, it's time. And I'm like, time for what? I was a mom, I was nursing, I was in a completely different reality. So it was funny because he's like, oh, okay, let's roll. And I was like, oh, okay. And then
Okay.
literally it was like, boom, everything started. So we're all sharing our stories, and that's what's important, not just for our teammates, but for the collective awakening happening in this moment because
Yes,
they're going to,
share your stories.
yep,
That's it.
share.
What
It's
that is the
storytelling time.
big.
Yeah.
And also because our codes come through in between our words that each
Yes.
other needs and we get drawn to them, right? This is how
Yep.
but this is part of why we're really I've heard it from so many people. I know it's true for myself. Share your story, write your story, do your story. And this is how like oracular wisdom keeping and
Yes.
wisdom keeping was done, is done. Yeshua taught in parables. It's all stories because the metaphors matter and then there's quantum information in those stories. So tell your stories, what I'm saying.
Tell your
Um,
story. Yep.
But
That's what we do.
before we get too far past, I wanted to just quickly revisit the cycles.
Yeah.
And just for those listening and observing in their own life, the cycles, right? We know everything it's a spiral, it's not a straight line. It's like right behind us on the screen if you're watching it on video. If you're listening on audio podcast, there's like a big space kind of spiral because that's that magnetic and that pattern that everything moves in. And Valerie and I have for a long time we'll call I'm seeing something, stuff's coming up. It's a 3-year pattern. Sometimes it might be a 4-year cycle. It might be a 7 and a 10. And I've learned to know kind of what happens as an alchemist. I see the alchemical cycle playing out on a 4-year
Mhm.
certain things, on a 7-year, on a 10. It's a new
Yes.
game board. Then we start a new thing, and so it's fascinating to watch that. But in your own life, when you see that, sometimes it's just another layer. Everybody talks about like the layer of the onion. So it's revisiting that theme that was happening 4 years ago. It's revisiting, like, the same people will show up,
Mhm.
whatever, you'll go to that place that you lived because something is totally resolving. And one of the things I'm being guided again, and we've talked about this, Valerie, is the timeline revisiting how we can repair when we do revisit it. Maybe you're being revisiting a traumatic time or whatever, or somewhere where you think you like really screwed up and screwed up your trajectory or your life or
Mhm.
whatever it was. When that does come up, revisiting it with compassion, with love,
Yeah.
with the person that you are in this timeline, the knowing that you have now that you would have never made that decision then. Just being there and like holding space for yourself, is a really powerful act.
Yeah.
And just like, energetically going, it's going to be okay, girl. Like, I'm just going to be here with you and I love you and you're
Right.
learning or whatever, or your
Yeah.
child, she's 6 and she's scared. Just be with her, be with yourself,
Right. Yep.
and that's really powerful work. And I don't know, that wanted to come out. So,
No, it's so
um,
important. That was exactly right on because that's what timelines are.
mhm.
We're, they're just groups of information, people, places, or things, and the group. I've talked about timelines like ad nauseum. I used to talk about them a lot because just to understand, outside of 3D, and most of what we've been doing has been outside, but now we're here. Everything's on the ground, which is ground crew go time. So all of the pieces that we've been writing and rewriting, right, in those other realms, it's all unfolding here now in this realm. But as I just said in the beginning, you can't put new software on an old system. And that's why
Yes.
it's so important to unhook that cycle that was running from Atlantis and to reboot essentially the Akashic records of the last few thousand years of trauma. Because if you look at the last 2,000 years, there really hasn't been a lot of joy and love, right? It's been a lot of sadness and a lot of trauma. So those two pieces were very important. But it wasn't like you can just unhook it. Now, because we've there it had to go in cycles, like you said, it couldn't just happen overnight. It doesn't work like that. That creates a lot of trauma. And also, people can't process that quickly. So that's why it's taken, quote, so long,
Yes.
right? When
Yeah.
people say, why didn't it happen in 2012? Why didn't it happen in 2016? Those, I don't get those comments as much, but I used to because so many people were attached to a specific date. And we know that it doesn't work like that. It's potentials. We are
Yeah. And it was
potentials.
just tipping a domino that's going to be
Yeah, exactly.
going for a while.
So if you gave up, quote, gave up on your mission, you never gave up. But a lot of people had to take a break, step back in regular 3D life, go back to their religion from when they were a child. Whatever it is, it's all fine. There's no judgment at all. It's your choice of what you're going to
Mhm.
do. But on a big scale, there's no failures. Nothing has failed. It's just, there was a lot that needed to happen. And yes, there was some interesting division that started to come in. Remember, when you're trying to unhook a program from a computer, what happens? You're going to get checked on it and
Yeah.
things are going to pop up. Are you sure you want to delete this? Oh, gee,
Mm-hmm.
what about this, this virus? We didn't even know that existed. But when you go
Yeah,
looking,
or you think you deleted the program, but there's still a folder full of shit on there that's slowing down your hard drive, right? That's what's coming,
exactly, that's a
right?
great analogy because that's exactly what happened. Things
Mm-hmm.
that I've talked about, I've been talking about them for years because I could see them in the energetic framework, but they weren't quite here yet. And they weren't able to come through because if you're working on a higher frequency, as it comes down into 3D, it slows down, right? Because this is a slower dimension. It's why we're in why there's physical reality here. So yes, that's what
So
happened.
in kind of wrapping up our last few minutes, let's talk a little bit about go time. Since we have that in the title and it is go time, I just want to I feel like I need to like close just a minute on the group alchemy because that's part of this go time
I do
as
have
we'll graze
language.
that over.
I have
Um,
language, so if you want
okay.
to go where I can go, you let me know.
I'm just gonna finish this and then you rock and roll, okay?
Okay.
So just with regard, I've spoken it before. Anybody that follows me or is part of the Mothership Alliance or whatever, I always talk about this quote from this show, Magicians on Prime, that's like always comes up and it keeps coming up again. And they'll show me when it's a group alchemy time, I'll hear the quote again. There are some spells that are too big for one person. There are some spells that are too big for one person. And we have reached that point in humanity where now we've done our individual work, we've done our lineage cleaning, we've done a lot of that. But some of these big things, big grief, big pain, big whatever, earth movements, energetic movements are too big for one person. So you will see it's been happening for a few years now. I've been working in groups now for a few years where I was working for years and years alone. But now this is the year, as Valerie calls it, the year of the gathering. And I
Yeah.
was seeing the same thing too. And when I went out for 6 months, like Valerie is right now, the intention was connect with Soul Family, Light Tribe in person on the ground.
Yep.
And I ran a whole loop from Shasta to Shasta in a loop to Sedona, Santa Fe. And now she has just gone that same loop. And she and I wove and worked in that loop with groups. And it is a root chakra to root chakra. We did an equinox. Anybody that was part of that, we called it root to root because that's what came in for us. There's
Yep.
the root of the country and the root of the planet. And we're just two people. There are so many ground crew who are all doing this, and we're friends with a lot of them, but there's like thousands and thousands we don't know, and we're all orchestrating together, and it's a freaking miracle. And
Yep.
that's why we're putting this stuff out there so that we can find others who are like, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be there, whatever. So we're going to be seeing more groups, more being called at certain times to certain places. And I wanted to talk about that go time. I know in my work, I have been guided along the way at certain points to do things, whether it's on grid work or activities about activating new, and I use military metaphors because that's what comes in, new factions of people who are coming online. And I see it, okay, there's like a whole Celtic Viking thing. And she and I will talk about that, like happening right now. And then the factions come online to do a certain job or to join the rest of the troops. And right now, we're being joined. We're like rolling in. So let's talk about go time a little bit and what you're seeing with the gatherings and what's
Yeah.
happening with you.
Yeah. And that's why, I left Redondo October 1st, put my stuff in storage, and that's the message I got. It's time to get on the land. I'm curating places and spaces, and I need to meet everybody. And also, wherever you go, you bring your frequency. So wherever I go, I unfold. Oh, you're muted. It looks like your mic's off, honey.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm just listening. I just was
I
trying to.
thought I didn't know if that was on purpose or not. Sorry.
It's on purpose, just so you
Oh,
get
okay.
full stage, and I'm not doing any
Yeah,
ambient
okay.
noise. I was just showing my mothership cup because I'm a
Oh,
goofball, and the
okay.
mothership the
Um,
ships are landing, yo. We're already land. We already here. Yeah,
yeah, that's a whole other discussion. But yes,
yeah.
there's a lot of galactic. Everybody's awake. Everybody's ready. Everyone's on the ground. That's what I heard. It's gathering. So I've been going to land, meeting everybody, also determining, where these gatherings are going to be. Shasta is super important. Where you are, of course, where I am in Santa Fe is very important. Um, People have land. They're ready. They've been preparing. We've all been preparing for what's coming, which are the gatherings. And there's been some small gatherings, but I see the giant gatherings next year where 50, 100 of us, 150, 200. So, and it's not just the collective, it's all of us. Like, the oracles of various times and places. I see us all meeting to bring our frequency together to create the
Masters
cybernetic
retreats. We've been getting masters retreats.
Masters retreats, Shasta. That's the message I got. This is a master's town. So I'm
Mhm.
also going to, break up whatever needs to be broken up. It's not necessarily grid work, but it's also moving with the crew on what needs to happen. And it's so seamless now, isn't it? I mean, I
It's
don't know.
unbelievable.
Nothing has to be said. I arrive here. I just text a few people.
I'm sh
Things are,
I'm like all shing-a-ling-a-ding-dong. It's
yeah.
unbelievable.
Things are moving. People are showing up. I'm getting picked up right after this podcast. It's like it's just a symphony because we've laid
Yes,
the
that's the word that
groundwork.
comes.
All of you have laid the groundwork. The symphony is ready to begin. And that's it. It's that simple. We all know our pieces, our parts, our places, our people. And now it's just seamlessly coming together. That's where the telepathy comes in. We are telepathically communicating. And now that, very importantly, that the old Akashic is not running. Because a lot of people, that was really a distraction. All the old stuff, right? Well, what happened 20 years ago? What happened 1,000 years ago? What happened in Atlantis? I mean, so all of that, if you can think about, was keeping everybody very busy in their mind. This is
Mhm.
also very important.
Good point.
The mind, right? Trying to, and the body, because when you get triggered, all of your old subconscious stuff comes up. That's
Oh,
the
hell, you
Akashic
can just sit
Records.
there and run like what happened in your marriage. Forget about like
Highly
Atlantis.
presented.
Like, oh my God.
This is a very important day, not just because it's my birthday, but because literally the time loop has ended and the Akashic has been reset. I haven't posted about it yet because there's probably a long post, and I want to be offline today and out
Yes. Yes.
enjoying
I
for my
love that you're
birthday.
doing this and that I got to be with you
Yeah, I
on your
know.
birthday. This won't be the last time that Valerie comes on. There'll be certain guests that we do that just like when I did She Speaks or things on Ma, but with the OD show,
Yeah,
it's every week. That was the intention. And a mission, and I was guided, create a container, just like writing a
yeah,
book,
yep.
create a container for what wants to come through that week, what transmissions want to come through and whatever. So we know, and just like this seamless, effortless weaving, we'll just know. And Valerie and I have done this for years. Like, oh, we're supposed to go live and talk about this. Oh, we're
Yeah.
supposed to go here or whatever. So that's what we're doing. And we got to do it on your birthday. Go, shorty. It's your birthday.
I do want to say one thing because I was seeing it as you were talking about the cycles, right? Everything is that if you look at the 3, 6, 9, 12, okay? So when I look at something, I can see where we're at. If are we coming back in
Yeah.
or are we going back out? And that's how we measure time in this third dimension. Where are we in that cycle? Are we coming out of something we just processed? Then we come back in, right? And that is how we move together. That's how the monad soul family group moves together. And the more you listen and you move that fear or all the thinking out of the way, it's much easier. Life is much easier. And that's where we're headed. And that's what's happening today. So just keep following your heart.
Yes.
And I said this, your mission does not care what's happening in your 3D existence. So this is really important because that's where most people get stuck, have gotten stuck, went back into 3D because they weren't able to function. And I totally get it. It took me a while to get out of Redondo. Everybody who knows me knows this. I kept getting, okay, time to go, time to go. But I was dragging because of my situation, because I have a son and all of the thinking, right? All of the, oh, what ifs. But I
Yep.
had to finally leap. I had no choice.
And it will, if if your higher self is like full on said yes, you're already on board,
Expect it. You'll be
it will
ushered out.
clear. Like clear it or it will be cleared for
Yes,
you.
I know.
Right. Yeah. I've had that many times. Like it was like when I left Walla Walla, I knew I had already been getting just like you that I was going to go rogue. I had this feeling that I was going to go travel for a bit or whatever, but I thought it was maybe a year or two. I want to be there with my son and my dad and everything. And then same thing as you, like place
Yeah.
got sold, trees got cut down,
Yeah.
go, nope, psh,
And of
everything
course,
out.
I call you right when you're sitting in it. We hadn't spoken for a year. And I call you as I'm driving down, I think to San Diego. And you're sitting and you're like in the middle of it. And I call because it was that time for us to pick up
Yep.
again where we left off. And
Yep.
so that's the thing. It doesn't matter what you've done, what's happened. If you went back into 3D, you can start right now stepping back into whatever you were doing. It's still there.
Yep.
So that's an
And
important
sometimes it's not a
goal.
mistake. It's like
There's
sometimes
no
you gotta
mistake.
just go back into and process what you were going, and then it
Exactly.
wasn't the time for go time,
Yeah,
right?
process. That's it. And it can take a minute to process or 100 years. That's the
Right,
thing. There is because you can't measure it by linear time because
right.
linear time only exists because we say it does. It's a agreed upon construct in this reality. It's a calendar that is also no longer operating, which is why a lot of people forget space and time because we're now on the galactic cycle, the 1320. It dropped in a while ago, but we haven't been running on it because what we do as a group, as a construct, has not been compatible with a galactic cycle. But that's also changing, which is why things are changing in this 3D reality, and they will continue in a very interesting way coming up.
That's for sure.
Okay, I think I'm
Um,
complete.
Beautiful.
Questions?
I am I am getting, the team would like to do another one that they want me to spend more time talking to you about the light language. And
Okay, good.
having more language because I think that that's an important one that could stand alone.
Yes, I'd be
Um,
happy to. And I'd be happy to work with anybody on their language. A lot of times it's what's blocking the language. It's not that you can't remember, it's what's in the way, which is trauma or being judged or whatever, right? Whatever that
yeah,
is.
and you're not wrong if you can't speak like I speak light language with my hands. I didn't even realize
Right.
it was coming on, and then I was seeing other people like I've always talked with my hands, like an old Italian lady, like, you
Yeah.
know, but it was around 2020 when I noticed in videos that I was having certain things, and then it went full on into like it'll be
Yeah.
over certain chakras or I'm doing certain things, and now I understand a little bit more about what's happening.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good conversation because a lot of people are coming online with their
Yes.
either drawing it, doing it with their hands. We speak light language with our English language or whatever language you
Right.
speak to. There's quantum information there, but then
Yes.
certain people have certain codes and light language to bring. And Valerie does courses. She works with people on this to
Yeah.
open that up and train
I'm
about
doing
it
one right
too.
now. I just started one. So if you want to jump in, you can still join. It's 3 months, but it's time to kind of. Sorry, my birthday messages.
Yeah, and
Um,
we're wrapping up time. She's got
yeah,
a date. She's got a
yeah.
date.
I got a date. Yay! What should I have?
Oh, you're going to eat. Yum.
Iconic, the iconic coffee. So I'll get
Oh, I love it.
something
Love
yummy.
that place.
I know, me
Oh,
too.
oh, they've got these eggs with prosciutto in that. Like, are you going by
Ooh,
the Guadalupe? What? Go by the
I'm
Guadalupe
not
shrine, the church?
sure. I'm being whisked away, so I'm
Okay,
not sure which
go to
location.
that one. It's
Yeah.
on Guadalupe. It's where
Okay.
the
I
big,
know where
there's
it is.
like a walking rosary. That's the one.
Oh, perfect.
Oh,
That
yeah.
sounds
It's a
right.
spot. It's a spot. Okay. Now
Okay.
that everybody
Yay!
knows
Thank you,
about that,
everybody.
we're just gonna
Thank
I
you.
do want to take just a sacred moment just to
Okay.
close it up.
Yes.
Just to
Thank you for having
close
me.
it up. Thank you so much, Valerie. It has been my joy and pleasure and adventure to roll with you
My
um,
pleasure.
for almost a decade now, about a decade
Oh,
more,
wow.
maybe. Wow.
Damn. Damn.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
We
Okay.
everyone out there sending so much love right now. I saw a comment there, Jamie, from you about the grief and letting it go. Many of us, especially the women empaths, are feeling this collective that we together when we come together, even in moments just like these, that we can create a container for transmutation, for lifting of that load, and for knowing that some of this stuff coming through isn't all ours, and that we can just act as a conduit and a container to help process all of what's happening. And we just bless all of you and all of us on this journey at this time for what's happening and is unfolding. We thank you for coming together and being with us for this conversation and for this sacred time. Thank you. Oh,
Uh-huh. Mwah. Love
bye,
you.
everybody. Happy birthday. Enjoy your lunch.
Thank you. Bye.